right? And we work on this thing for a year, finally get the thing finished. We sell it. And then we find out at the end of all this, because we had to pay taxes, interest, all the back payments that the developer never paid, the contractors, et cetera, we had nothing left. We're broke. Broke where I ended up having to go through bankruptcy. Broke where I had to ask my wife to start cleaning houses. Now, we started working hard again. We found somebody to teach us something really interesting in real estate that I'm going to show you today. And it helped us to make 40 grand shortly after bankruptcy. We kept doing it over and over and over again. And at the end of the year, we had our first ever $1 million year. Now, we moved out of that little tiny apartment we were renting in Chicago. We moved into a house. My son, he got his own bedroom finally. And like, we're still sharing a car. We're tithing. And then I got an email from the bankruptcy attorney. And I called him and I'm like, what's going on? And he said, Nate, the trustee doesn't think that you went bankrupt. She heard that you went 0 to $1 million in a year. And she thinks that you must have hid money. Nobody goes 0 to $1 million that fast. They said, well, I didn't. I got nothing to hide. Just show them everything. Give them the bank accounts. Give them whatever you want. My bankruptcy attorney says, well, Nate, it's not that simple. This is a perception thing. They could drag you through court for the next 3 years. I turn to my mother-in-law who runs a prayer group and I say, Anna, will you pray for us? We start praying week after week after week. 3 months pass. I get a phone call from the bankruptcy attorney. And he says, Nate, I've never seen this before in state history. The trustee just called me and she dismissed your case. She doesn't want to hear anything else. No more depositions, no more audits. She just dismissed it. And I said, hallelujah. And then he says, well, Nate, no, it's just coincidence. And I'm like, are you kidding me, man? You just said that this never happened. He's like, okay, fine. Hallelujah it up. After that happened, it made the newspaper. People started calling us. They started asking, how do you do this? How does it work? How do you find these deals? How do you make money from them? And then we started teaching this stuff. And that's kind of how all of us came here today. So if it's okay with you, we're going to get into that. How do you find these deals? We understand the distressed deals a lot because I lived it. A lot because my partner here, Chris Strickland, he did 1,600 deals and the majority of them had some distress around them. And right now they're starting to come onto not the market, but they're starting to become available again. And so if you want to get deals like this, like the one that's on the screen right now that we paid 3.3 million for it, and just 2 years ago, someone paid 5.7 for it, then this is what you want to pay attention to today. Okay. By the way, question for you. Let me know in the chat. This is a two-way thing. Chris and I are going to be giving away some books in just a little bit here for people that are engaged. We like when you're learning. We like when you're getting feedback back and forth. So yes or no in the chat. Type yes or no in the chat. Is what you see on the screen right here, is this a killer deal? Would you like to learn how to get deals like this? Give me a yes or a no in the chat. Deals like this, are they worth your time to dive into? Would you like to know how to find these? Would you like to know how to fund these and get the money for it? Still, even though it's a big discount, it's still $3.3 million we had to bring in for the deal. And the blessing for us, God allowed us to do it in 8 days. 8 days, we raised that money, $3.3 million. Bam, like that. Okay. Would it also help you to learn how to get the earnest money for these? It was a $300,000 earnest money check we wrote for that. Would you like to know how to get that? The deposit, the financing, etc. Okay, awesome. So here's the thing. We know, Chris and I have been teaching this for a bit, and we know that usually if you follow the old school model where they said, sit down, be quiet, that was what we learned back in school in the day. I'm a public school kid. If you follow that model, studies show that 90% of the stuff goes in one ear and out the other. We don't retain it. We don't really learn it. It doesn't sink in. And I could test that. I could say, hey, who here knows what year Theodore Roosevelt became president? And then all of us would think for a second, oh gosh, I can't remember that date. It's because most of it slipped in and slipped out really fast. But those same studies also show that if you actively engage while you're learning, then what happens is that you can retain 70% or more. So if you'd like to get a good return on investment on your time today, then engage, really engage, play full out in the chat, turn your camera on, hang out with us. For the folks that have cameras on and are engaging with us in the chat, we've got some pretty cool giveaways that we're doing. I'm a huge nerd on how to reduce or eliminate income tax. So I've got a tax book called Tax-Free Wealth I'm going to give away. Chris has got one he's going to be giving away, and we're going to be calling on people that have cameras on. So go ahead, turn them on. And then also are playing full out in the chat. If you're in a position where whatever your camera doesn't work, then play full out even more in the chat for us. Okay? So cool. The key is participation. Participation. I've been blessed to meet some amazing people in this business. People like Pace Morby, Donald Trump Jr. We've won some cool awards. I'm not going to bore anybody with that kind of stuff right now. If you want to Google search us, you're welcome to Google search us. But God has really given us a lot of favor in this business and a lot. But probably what I'm most proud of are the people that I get to work with day to day. And one of them you're going to meet right now. Chris Strickland, this man has done over 1,600 real estate deals. And yet he remains super humble. Yet he finds time like this to give back to people. So for just a second, I want to say hello to Chris. Chris, are you there, man? There you are.
Hey, Nate. Yep, right here.
Chris, man, maybe you want to just tell people, like, you can tell people anything that you want. I know, because you've got gold that drops out of your mouth every time that you talk. But what are you hoping that people get out of today?
Well, I tell you what, as you said earlier, you and I were able to participate in the last recession, the housing downturn back in 2008, and we're seeing it all over again. And so if I could, encourage everybody or hope that everybody gets to participate, it would be right now, because we have been waiting. You and I have been talking about this for the last number of years. But we're actually in it now. It's finally here. It's at the doorstep. And so to be able to see people be able to jump in with both feet and be able to reap the rewards, that's what I would like to be able to see.
Awesome. You're right. It's finally here. We're going to go through the data on that in just a minute too. It's funny, Mark Swan, you put 1900, you were so close. It was 1901. And the only reason it wasn't 1900 for Theodore Roosevelt is because he came in actually as a vice president, and the president then was assassinated, and then he took office the next year. So Mark, you got high retention. You must have been really engaged back in school. So as Chris was saying, opportunities like this, they don't come around every day. Like we saw this back in 2008, 2009, and now more than a decade later, it's knocking on our door again. And so this is a chance, this is a spot where you probably want to really lean in and pay attention to this.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not as smart as Chris. I'm just going to be forthright about that. I'm a mere mortal next to this guy. I'm going to prove it too. I was on a trip to Rome in parts of Italy a couple months ago, 3 months ago or so. We saw some touristy sites, and then we're packing up, we're leaving town, we're driving out of town, and I look over and I see it. I see the Colosseum. And I turned to the family in the car and I'm like, hey, do you guys want to see this? Do you want to jump out and see it? And everyone's like, yes, yes, yes. And so I find a parking spot up on the top of the hill. And I'm like, thank God we found a parking spot. Rome was crazy, but we found a parking spot. We get out of the car. We're walking down to the Colosseum. And then I think to myself, did I lock the car? And I'm thinking, yeah, hold on. I remember I pressed the button. I remember I heard the horn honk. Yeah, I locked the car. And so we hustle down, but this time now we're in a hurry. Like, let's really go. Hurry so much that my 4-year-old is like, Dad, will you carry me? Carry me, carry me. So I'm carrying the kid, wife, and our other big kid and grandma. We're walking down. We take the picture. Now we're going back up the hill. And I look up on the hill and I see someone parallel parking next to our car. And I'm like, oh, they're kind of sitting there for a long time. Huh. And I'm looking up and then I see somebody jump out of the car. And I'm like, okay, maybe he's just going to, help direct the other car. And I look up again, he's punching my window. He's smashing my window. What the heck? He's opening my door. He's grabbing my backpacks. Now I turn in. I want to know, number one, what you would do. What would you do right there? If you saw someone smashing your windows, they're up the hill, you're a distance away, what would you do? More on this shortly, okay? Distress asset advantage. Chris and I get to cover this today. We are going to teach full out on this. Like, we're probably going to go for another hour or so. We are going to give you everything we got as much as we can in a limited period of time, okay? How to fund these things, how to find these things, how to drastically reduce your income taxes by participating in distressed assets like this. At the very end of all of this, if we did an amazing job, and you are the judge of this, if we did an amazing job teaching you, then we'll invite you to be able to work with Chris and I directly for less than $300. That's at the end, only if we did an amazing job teaching you on this, okay? But if at any time you feel during this session that you're like, hey, I have to run, but I know I want to work with these guys for a couple of days, working together with them, then you can grab a spot. I'll ask this, Philip, could you put a link in the chat for that just in case somebody has to go early and then they can grab that? Philip, if you could drop that link, that'd be amazing. Philip, myself, and Chris are running this webinar. We've got Paige on here. If you see links from us four, we're part of the team. If you see any other ones, we'll have to remove them and boot the person because we don't want anyone getting any kind of bad links and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's get into this. So we got the next 50 minutes or so to give you all the information that we can about finding distressed assets, funding them, and manage them, okay? So what is a distressed asset? It's really a property that you could talk about distressed assets and cars, businesses, but we talk real estate here. We know real estate. And so for us, it's a property sold at a discount because of an outside force. What are some examples of that? Well, we always relate back to the D's in real estate. If you have debt that causes pressure on people, bad debt can force a distressed asset sale. Divorces, either a business breaking up like partnerships or a husband and wife, that can produce a distressed situation. Disease, death, destructive weather. Did you see the hurricane damage from Hurricane Helene and a little bit from Milton just a few weeks ago? Holy cow, devastation. Now, we specialize in number one, which is debt. That's when there's a bad loan on the property. In our humble opinion, it's much easier to navigate those properties than it is a hurricane damaged property. Hurricane damaged property, you're dealing with mold and contractors and all that stuff. On bad debt properties, you just got to replace the loan. And we're going to get into that today, okay? Now, what's further amplifying this and why we think that right now is the best time in history, at least since 2008, 2009, is because of what you see on your screen right here. This is a graph of multifamily sales. Multifamily dipped back in 2009. That's that dip right in the middle of the screen. And it really didn't, it only flatlined and then went up until right now. The end of last year, we saw the first dip in multifamily since 2009. We're still in that dip, but a lot of experts believe that we've bottomed out and we're starting to climb back up again because multifamily is a very resilient asset class. Now, commercial real estate as a whole, I know it's very different than single family. You might be looking around saying, well, hey, Nate, my single family houses in my neighborhood, they haven't come down yet. They're still high in price. Don't worry, they probably will in the near future. But even if they don't, that's not where the opportunity is right now. The opportunity is mostly commercial stuff. If you look at the screen right here, the data shows that commercial as a whole, it's dipped some 37%. When we're talking about office space, especially in cities like New York or San Francisco, office is down as much as 50%. Why? Because during COVID, everybody ended up going and working from home. Look at this. We're all here on Zoom, right here, right now, on a video call. This is kind of the new reality. So office space took a big digger. So did other commercial real estate sectors. Apartment buildings, multifamilies did as well. But multifamily being the most resilient is the one that's rebounding the fastest. But if you want a good deal, like a killer deal, one that you can be proud of and tell your grandkids about, right now you have it. So let's break this one down. Okay, so this particular one that we started with, this is Barksdale Flats in Memphis, Tennessee. Great asset, Class A area, bad loan. What happened on this when the seller bought it 2 years ago and paid a pretty high dollar amount, $5.7 million, it actually appraised at that level. It was worth all of that level. The challenge is that they took out a bad loan. They took out a loan that had a lifespan of 2 years. And that's pretty common in the commercial real estate world. 2-year loans, 3-year loans, 5-year loans, sometimes 10-year loans. It's not very often to get really, really long loans in commercial. So this particular seller took out a 2-year loan thinking that rates would stay small, and they didn't. They ended up going up. Meanwhile, they converted the use from a multifamily into a more of an Airbnb, short-term rental situation. And unfortunately for them, their time ran out and their lender loan was at the point where they would have started the foreclosure process. We stepped in, we bailed them out. The seller was thankful and they didn't have to have any kind of foreclosure stain on their credit history. We were able to bail them out. Now you might say, well, how on earth do you know if you can make the numbers work? Number one, we interviewed every prominent property manager in this area. We wanted to make sure that our rent quotes were solid. So we did that. And then we plugged them all into this tool called the Instant Underwriting Calculator. If you don't have one of these, you need to have one of these because numbers drive every decision in commercial real estate investing. This is not just a gut feel thing. You got to make sure your numbers are right. So we put all the numbers, the bedroom and the bath count, the rents from all the property management companies. We assessed it backwards and forwards. and we knew it was time to pull the trigger, and we pulled the trigger on that deal. Now, this one here, this property, we bought this one for $492,000. We did something called a cash out refinance, pulled all of our money back, and we sold it within 18 months for $1.7 million. There's one error on the slide. It says that we bought it in 2024. We did not buy it in 2024. This is actually 2014. I had a typo there. My bad. How do we know this was a good deal? Again, we took it through the numbers. We took it through the instant underwriting calculator. You have to do this for every single property that you do. What this one told us is that it was good enough to buy it for $492 and rent it long-term. We rented it for a while, and then we went back to the bank, and a bank gave us a cash out refinance. I'm going to cover what that means in just a second. We got all of our money back on that property. And then we were holding it for a little bit, and then a buyer came along and took us out at 1.7. So we made a monster profit on that property. Okay. What I want to cover next is this. And Chris, as we're jamming on this, I know that you have a couple different spots that you want to insert. Just you feel free when you want to jump in, you jump in, because I want to make sure we get wisdom from you. Otherwise, I'm going to pull you in. That sound okay?
Anytime.
Okay. Cool. So advantages. There's 3 really big advantages to doing these distressed assets. Number one, I'm going to start with the bottom of your screen. It says less competition. There is, if you think about this, if I say these words, type for me in the chat, the first thing that comes to your mind, the feeling that you get as I say the following words, I want you to type in that feeling in the chat. Foreclosure, forbearance, short sale, bank mitigated sale. What kind of feelings do you get when you hear those words? Do you get like that's refreshing? Or do you get like a cringe? Sam says fear. Angie says opportunity. Angie, you're my lady. Well, my wife, Jennifer's my lady, but in this webinar right now, you are my lady, okay? Yes. Boris says trouble, fear. Yes, exactly. Opportunity. Jay Black, I like you. You're my guy. I like that. Okay. Red tape, says Ryan. Ryan, I'm going to point that one out. I really like that answer. And that's the reality. The majority of the marketplace has fear. They see red tape. They think, oh my goodness, that's going to be complicated. How can I get involved with something that's going through foreclosure or forbearance or short sale? That sounds like a pain in the butt. And that scares away 90% of the market. Chris, when you were taking down tapes, like literally like 50 plus assets at one swing, did you have any fear? What was going through your mind with that kind of feeling too?
Fear was all over the place. I mean, people were, in fact, that's the emotion was driving everyone's sale, everyone's lack of thinking that they're going to be able to pull out of what was facing the marketplace and everything. But the fear wasn't only among the individuals, the homeowners, and the property owners, but it was also among the banks. Everyone was feeling that fear. And so, yeah, it was very, very real. Did I feel it? I mean, I felt it. I was very, very fortunate. I was just getting started, and I was very, very fortunate that I had a mentor that helped me to navigate the fear so that I could still pursue the opportunities like several people said there.
Beautifully said, Chris. So that fear, that red tape, all those feelings that come up, that just prevents people from going after distress sales. So that means it's almost a wide open marketplace for us. I feel less competition. In fact, that deal that we just had up on the screen a minute ago, Barksdale Flats, this one, there was nobody else bidding against us. We worked with the seller. Like, we got this deal done. I didn't have 15 other offers. I didn't have multiple offers trying to beat me up and all that kind of stuff. We got this deal done. So I like less competition.
Nate, can I just
yeah, please
point something out about Barksdale? One of the things that goes through my mind when people see something, they're not bidding on it and everything, a lot of the times people are thinking, oh, they couldn't make it work, so I probably can't make it work either. When that's not the case at all. It's just like you said, a bad loan, bad debt, or bad management in some cases, or whatever it else might be. So just because somebody else wasn't able to do it doesn't mean it's not doable.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Cool. Let's keep going on this. So what's the next part? I want to talk about infinite returns. And iPhone, I saw your comment too. Don't worry, we're doing a lot of deals right now. We get almost one deal per month that's coming through like this. So stay tuned. Don't don't freak out because I put one deal up from 10 years ago. I want to show the whole story. I didn't start with a $3.3 million deal. I started with a $492,000 deal on the commercial frontier. That's why I wanted to show that. And it makes it more real for people depending on where they're at in the journey. Right now is the actual opportunity. 10 years ago wasn't the opportunity for this. Right now is. Okay, next, infinite returns investing. What the heck does that mean? Let's say this. I want you guys to play along with me. Do the math with me on this. If I invest, let's just say I bring this deal to you guys. We bought it for 3.3. We smoked it. We got a really killer deal. I bring it to you guys and I say, hey, let's all put $100,000 into this, hypothetically, okay? I wouldn't take any money on this, by the way, anyways. We fully funded this. It was long oversubscribed in 8 days. But hypothetically, if I said, hey, let's each put 100 grand in this. And at the end of year number 1, if you got rents back, distributions, profit in your bank account of $10,000 the first year, what would your return on investment be? Type it in the chat for me. You invested $100,000 at the end of the year, you got $10,000 back. What was your rate of return? How much money did you make? What's the ROI? If you put in 100 and you got $10,000 back. Okay, yeah, iPhone, Mark, yeah, Anya, yeah, 10%, spot on. You guys are good. You guys are a good group. I didn't even have to teach what ROI meant and you nailed it. Okay, let's say this. If I invest 100 grand and I got $15,000 back, what would my return on investment be? I invest 100 and I got $15,000 back at the end of year number 1. What would their ROI be? Yeah, cool, 15%. Fairly easy math with 100 grand. Awesome, you're good. Okay, how about same investments, but at the end of year number 1, I go to a bank. I get a bank to give us a loan. We paid cash for this property. I give a bank to give us a loan, and the bank gives us all of our money back, 100% of it. And I'm then able to turn around and give you back your money. So every partner in the deal got all of their money back at year number 1. And on top of that, you also got a $10,000 return. So you got all your 100 grand back and you got an extra 10,000 bucks. What is your ROI now? What is your rate of return at that point? This one's a little harder to calculate. Yeah, I like that answer, Brian. I like your answer, Mark. You guys are right. You could say, well, it's 110%. You could say it's infinite. I like to use the word infinite. I know that the financial gurus, they'll get on my case and they'll say, well, Nate, technically you had to put in some money. I agree, I do. But from this aspect, think about it like this. Year number 1, you get your money back. Year number 2, you make 12 grand in rents because rents went up. Year number 3, you make 14 grand in rents because rents went up again. Year number 5, you make 16 grand in rents. Year number 10, you make 20,000 in rents. What is your return on investment? Is it okay for me to call that infinite, at least for the purposes of this training? Are we all okay using that word? It's an infinite return. Yeah. Okay. So that's what we like to go after. The only way that you can do that is by buying below market. That's why we're going after these distressed assets. If you're going after a retail priced asset, it's really hard to make this work. But if you get them distressed like this, and I'm not talking about hurricane damage, we're talking about bad loans that we're taking out. If you can get them, you can get a monster discount on them if it's done the right way. Okay. So if you got at least one nugget so far, can you put a yes in the chat? At least one nugget, one thing that you can practically use so far. We're just getting started, but I just want to check and make sure this is landing and resonating with everybody. Yes. Yes. All right, Brian. All right, Lori. Nice, Mark. Okay. So I look up on the hill. I see this dude smashing the windows. And out of pure habit, I'm carrying my 4-year-old. Out of pure habit, I threw him up on my shoulder like a sack of potatoes. And I start charging up the hill. No, no. I turn bright red because I'm Irish and I'm just charging like a raged man. Habits. Okay. Habits made me do that. Maybe it was my days of college football. I think it was habits. Duke University did a study that shows that 40% of our daily decisions are made by pure habits. Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you have good habits? Yes or no? Put yes or no in the chat. If you think you have good habits, put yes in the chat. If you think that like things like brush your teeth, Say, yes, I have good habits. Okay. How many of you have bad habits? Type yes in the chat if you think that you have a bad habit or two. I'm going to put yes in the chat because I know that I have a bad habit. I'm going to put yes there too. Yes, I put yes. Okay. Let me show you an example of what I mean, because this next part that we're going to teach, it's on some tax stuff that you probably haven't heard before, and it's going to conflict with some knowledge you have in your head. And I want to make sure we can get through the habit together. Okay. So for just a second, I want you to do this. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. And I want you to put a 1 in the chat and click enter. So it's going to, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, go, and you'll put a 1 and press enter. And I'm going to do that. Okay. A few different times. Okay. So get ready. You're going to put a 1 in the chat each time that I do it. 1, 2, 3, go. Now we all put a chat. Yeah, perfect. You're good. Good. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3. Whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't say go. I didn't say go. Now, some of us still put a 1 in the chat. I did that intentionally because after 3 times we had a habit formed. Even though I didn't say go, everybody was ready just to jump in. Okay. That happens in our daily decision-making process. And I'm going to show it like this. Okay. Put your hands, even if you can't come on camera, put your hands together like this, fold them across, whatever your natural way is. Okay. Keep them clasped together. If you are someone that has your right thumb over your left thumb, if that's you, raise it up high. Raise it up high if your right thumb's over your left thumb. Okay. That means you're a logical thinker. That's what the study shows. You're a logical thinker. Okay. Who's got left over right? Left over right. Okay. That means you're a good lover. That's what the study, I'm just kidding. There's no study for that, but we're going to pretend. Okay. And who's side by side? So you got logical or lover. Which one's better? And who's side by side? Leave them crossed for a second. Leave them crossed. We're almost to the point of this. I want to make sure you get this. Okay. If you're side by side, it means you're doomed. Okay. Now I want you to make one change. Instead of if you were right over left, I just want you to cross it so that you're left over right. And I want you to tell me in the chat how it feels when you cross that thumb over. How does it feel? You can take your hands apart after you do it, but I want to know, like, how does it feel? Chris says very unnatural. Michael says not right. Yeah. How does that feel? Strangely weird, Sam says. Now, why? It's because I broke your habit. You have a habit. The way you cross your hands together, you have a habit. And I asked you to break your habit. And sometimes, do you think that your habits get so ingrained that you could run on autopilot? What happens if your patterns are taking you, or your habits are taking you into a direction that you don't want to go anymore? What if they're taking you down a road that's not as productive as you think you should be? When your knowledge comes up against your habits will win every single time. Yes or no in the chat, okay? Or yes, I'm going to say, do you think that your decisions today will lead to your destination in the future? Yes or yes. Do you think your decisions today will lead you to your destination in the future? Yes. Thank you. Yeah, your decisions equal your destiny. It's not an accident that you're here today. You took a decision. You probably heard or saw something about this event and you're like, hey, I'd like to be there. You took a decision, especially in today's crazy world that we have. I'm not going to go political on you guys, but I'm a little bit frosted that I saw that they're sending a bunch of tax dollars to Ukraine again. And we've got people in North Carolina right now that still are homeless, or the fact that we've got 24% of American kids that don't have a dad in their house right now. If the government did what our nonprofit did and started helping kids come back to their dads and the whole concept of fatherhood, and they took that 2.4 billion they sent to Ukraine and put it into our own people, I think we could have a pretty good nation again. Okay. Let me ask this, and then I'm going to get to the teaching point for this. Do you think you could put your tax dollars to better work than you're currently seeing? Do you think that if you had your tax dollars, you could put them in places that would make a better impact in the world? Would you do better with your tax dollars than the government right now? Yes. Thank you, Angie. I know you could. Yes. Okay. Well, good, because we're going to give you something that it's not something that is taught mainstream. You're not going to find this in most textbooks. This is stuff that's like buried deep inside the Internal Revenue Code. Okay, we reframed this. We called it the SARA method so that you remember it, SARA. We're going to get through as much of it as we can today, but this is how you can legally keep more of your tax dollars. Instead of giving it all to Uncle Sam and the IRS, if you follow what we're about to teach you, you'll be able to keep more of it in your pocket, okay? The way that we came about this is that I got invited to help a really wealthy guy invest his money. He said, Nate, all of my money is invested by my family office. You got to talk to my CPA and my attorney there. They make all the decisions. Like I like you and I want to do this, but you got to talk to them. And I sat down with them. I showed them what we do. And then at the end of it, their CPA said, Nate, you have to change 4 things. Like, okay, well, which 4 things? And that's where he laid this out. SARA, Sarah, we're going to get through it. And we wrote a whole book on this. Like we've got the whole kind of kit and caboodle for it. But let me break it down and I'll go back and forth with Chris on this too. So the first one, I'm going to jump to the A because it's a little bit easier to understand first. And we're almost at tax time being at the end of the year. So this right here is called Urban Flats, what you see on your screen. It's a beautiful 72 unit building in Louisville, Kentucky. I love it because it brings in $61,000 per month. That's great for us and our partners, but I love it more because of this. We got a specialist to go on site and write a report called a cost segregation study. And I know that's a big fancy word. Don't worry. Like if you hear it a few times, we actually also have a dictionary that we'll show you how to get at the end of this too. But if you hear it a few times, you'll start picking up on these. But we sent that specialist out. They wrote a report. They came back and said, hey, at the end of year number 1, you can take a $976,000 passive loss. What the heck is a passive loss? Does that mean you lose money? No, it means that the IRS understands that you're investing into properties. They know that the property over time will start to need some upgrades, windows, roofs, etc. They also know that you're creating jobs, you're supplying housing. So they give some tax benefits for it. It's one of the best tax benefits in the United States of America by far. It's why a lot of wealthy people park their money in real estate specifically. Tax benefits that I'm talking about, well, we've got this investor named Alex Landau. He's worked with us for a long time. Alex is one of the best currency traders in New York City. This guy makes a lot of money. The tax man likes to come after him and get a lot of taxes from him. He's a young guy, he's single and makes a ton. And so what Alex does, Alex is a partner in this particular deal. And so he got to share part of this $976,000 on passive losses. So he could actually use that to reduce his income tax. I like to explain it as basically, it's kind of like taking a tax credit. You get a tax credit, you reduce your income tax, bang. So that's what Alex does. We've got another client named Eric Dwyer. Eric Dwyer did a ton with Bitcoin mining before Bitcoin mining was cool. Whenever he sells that Bitcoin, he owes taxes on it because he has such monster gains on it. Instead of paying those tax liabilities, he also invests in real estate like this and gets the passive losses to offset the tax liability. And I know that sounds a little bit like high-tech mumbo jumbo, but just know, I'll simplify it like this. Just know, I tell my 10-year-old son all the time, Bianco, I say, hey, it's kind of like when you buy a piece of real estate, you get tax credits. It's not legally a tax credit. They call it a passive loss, but that's how we're able to help knock out some taxable income for folks that don't want to pay as much to the IRS. For me, this is my most recent refund check that I got from the IRS. I got 24 grand back from the IRS. I probably should have paid in around 200 grand for that tax year. And because I was part of that project and several others, I ended up getting a tax refund, okay? Matt Lewis, him and his wife Denise, they're doing the same thing, but they don't want to do it with the big buildings. He wanted to do it with the small ones. So if there's anyone here that's like, hey, I don't want to start with those big projects, is there anything smaller? This is how Matt Lewis started. A little triplex like this. He bought it for 400 grand. He took out a bank loan. He put down a $130,000 down payment. Type 130 in the chat. I want you to remember this part. This is where it's going to get really powerful. Type 130 in the chat for me. Thanks for playing full out. And since Sam, you were the first one. You typed 1031, but I'm going to count that as 130. Sam, you're the first one. Send me a private message, and I'm going to send you a link. We're going to get you a free book. You're going to get one of my favorite books. It's called Tax-Free Wealth. I'm going to ship it right to your door. It's going to come in a package from Amazon, but if you send me a private message, direct message, I'm going to reply with the link, and then I'm going to get you a book sent out on the house.
Nate, I'll just
Yeah.
take care of that. Sam, I'll send you the link right now and we'll have you fixed up.
Amazing. Amazing. Thanks, guys, for playing full out. Keep it going. We got more books to give away. Chris has got a book that he's going to give away too. Okay. So Matt Lewis put 130 grand in this triplex. Watch this. This is his tax person wrote this email. I just screenshotted it. His tax person said, hey, based on all the numbers, year number one, you can get 106,804 deduction from this acquisition. Remember, he invested 130. Year number one, as a tax break, he's getting $106,000. That's almost all of his investment back year number one. And then he gets to collect rents from the property forever. If you go down and look further in this email, he also gets more tax benefits year number 2, year number 3, year number 4, and year number 5. It's monster. It adds up really, really fast. Okay. So this works for the big stuff and the small stuff. Next one. If you are an active real estate investor, can you put active in the chat? If you've done some kind of real estate investing, put active in the chat, because this one, it's really going to ring home for you. A lot of people miss this one. Thanks, iPhone. Thanks, Robin. 7 doors. Nice. Nice, Angie. So our active investors, watch this. The family office, they explained this concept to me called repair versus replace. Should you put in new stuff or should you repair existing stuff? And really, you should do whatever the property needs is the answer. But from a tax perspective, there's an advantage to doing repairs. Watch this. We are really close, God willing, to closing on this property. It's Morgan Terrace in Oklahoma City. We've negotiated a great deal. It's way under market. We're buying it for 3.7. Long story, I'm going to make short. Here's the deal with it. The seller on it has fallen behind on some of the repairs. They got really sick. Daughter took over. We're buying it directly from the daughter, so on and so forth. As we make decisions on repairs, we're thinking about things like this. When you go in and it needs new flooring because the hardwood's all busted up or beat up because of dogs and whatever else, you can either replace it or you can sand it and stain it and repair it. From a tax perspective, doing a repair on a rental property is tax deductible year number 1. Whereas when you replace something, you have to stretch out the tax benefits over a longer period of time. It depends on the repair and the dollar amount. But for a repair that's small, like sanding floors, staining, all that kind of stuff, we can get the tax benefit this year. So what the CPA in the family office explained to me is he said, Nate, try to do more repairs. Where most people fail, here's the bottom line, guys, is that they forget to tell their CPA at the end of the year if it was a repair or a replace. How many people here, put yes or no in the chat if this is you, are telling your CPA the difference between repair and replace? Yes or no? How many people are doing that right now? Those of you that are active real estate investors, who's doing that? Taking the time to tell your CPA that this was a repair, this was a replace. Most of us aren't yet. Merry Christmas early. We're giving you huge tax savings. Now, before you submit your tax stuff at the end of the year, make sure you tell your CPA, take out a highlighter marker. This was a repair. This was a repair. This was a replace. So then your CPA can properly categorize it. Okay. That's a huge one. Last thing I'm going to touch really quick before we move into the third session of this on the funding side is something called real estate professional status. Now, every single person here under the sound of my voice qualifies or has the option to qualify for becoming a real estate professional. What this does not mean is that you're a broker, you're an agent, you have a license, you took a test. Doesn't mean any of those. It has nothing to do with that. This is a tax status. You all here want to get this tax status as soon as you can. If it's not today or this year, then next year, just do it, okay? Or have your spouse do it. Why do you want it? Well, those passive losses that we're talking about, they limit you if you're not a real estate professional. They say, hey, you're maxed out at this level if you're not a real estate professional. But when you get this status, this tax status, you can have almost unlimited. I can't say unlimited because there are some restrictions to it, but you can have almost unlimited. Now, there's no free lunch. There's nothing in life that comes for free. And so there are some rules around this, okay? Dr. Mash, who's invested with us now for 12 or 13 years, he came to me recently and said, hey, Nate, what's that tax thing that you've been telling me to do for a long time? I'm about to get clobbered on taxes because my wife made a bunch of money and I want to do that tax thing now. And I said, great, Ron. Yes, called real estate professional. He's like, well, my CPA said that I don't qualify for that. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, well, because I'm not, spending enough time in real estate. And I said, well, Ron, answer this question for me. Can either you or your wife, or do you now, do you like to attend trainings like this? Do you like to get educated on your real estate? Do you look at your financial statements on your rentals? Do you enjoy watching HGTV for at least 15 hours per week total with all of this stuff? He said, Nate, I love that. Yeah, I love all of that. I spend way more than 15 hours per week. Like I get as much learning as I can. I read about real estate all the time. And I said, well, you might want to tell your CPA that you probably qualify then. And he said, well, can you help me? So we got an email open. I emailed his CPA, Andrea, and we wrote it together. And I basically explained like, hey, Ron is not working another job right now. He makes the majority of his income from real estate. His wife works full time. She does that. But Ron's focus is real estate and he does at least 15 hours per week. Would he qualify? And she came back and said, yes, he would qualify. So what that did for Ron is now he's bumped up into that category where he can get almost unlimited tax benefits from real estate investing. Okay. Who here, let me know in the chat, if thinks that maybe you or your spouse might be able to qualify for this. Just put a yes in the chat. You or your spouse might be able to qualify for this. Lori does, Lisa does, Jim does. Yeah, great. You guys are amazing. Do it. If you haven't done it yet, talk to your CPA about it because it's a massive, massive tax saver. Chris, you ready to move into funding, my friend?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Okay. Funding. Okay. There's all these terms that are going to get thrown at you. If you're already in this business, you know some of these, but hear me out till we get to the end of this because we have some resources that will help you with these. Okay. So even if you've heard parts of this before, like earnest money, proof of funds, wait till we put the whole puzzle together. We're going to piece it together right now. Okay. So first one, proof of funds. Second one on the screen. I'm going to show you what that means in a second. Second one, earnest money deposit. Third one, bridge lenders, stabilized lenders, seller financing, assumable loans. Let's break each of these down. And then Chris and I have a special surprise for you on how we can actually help you with these if you need help with these. Okay. Chris, who's this smiling guy?
This is one of my favorite people. This is Aaron. He is so fantastic, and I think he's pretty excited about what we're seeing here on the screen too.
So Aaron's this isn't a done deal yet, but it's really close. This is an RV park. Aaron is a Canadian nurse. He's up in Canada, works as a nurse full time, does real estate part time. Chris has been helping Aaron for like the last year and a half or so. And we've watched Aaron go from 0 deals to now, I think he's closed over 12 deals since he started working with us. I take it back. He did 2 deals on his own before he met us, a couple of rentals up in Canada. And since meeting Chris, especially, this guy is on a mission. So he's presently working on this RV park. It's about a $5 million deal. And the whole hang up on it, the only reason the seller wouldn't sign the bottom line is because of proof of funds. They want big proof of funds. They want to make sure that he can actually buy it and close it out with the amount of cash that they needed for the down payment. And then the seller is willing to seller finance it. So pretty cool. And so we're working with Aaron on it. And just yesterday, I sent this over. This is one of my bank statements. I sent this over so that Aaron could take it to the seller and have a conversation with the seller and bang. Now, Chris found another resource to do proof of funds like this, like proof of funds. You can have bank statements, 401k statements, IRA statements, or you can use the tool that Chris has for us that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But it's a real part of the conversation with sellers. Sellers want to know that if they're going to sign the contract with you, that you have the ability to get it done. So if you've already got a bank account with millions and millions, you don't have to sweat so much because you can just print your own bank statement. If you don't have a bank statement with millions and millions, then you probably want to pay attention to what Chris goes through. The next one is earnest money. Chris, have you ever done a deal where you didn't have to have earnest money?
So, I mean, it is possible to do it without earnest money, but there are 2 reasons for earnest money, right? There's, first of all, satisfying the law. And that's one issue in and of itself. You can satisfy the law with $10 in most states. But then there's also the issue of satisfying the seller, right? Showing the seller that you're truly serious about buying their property from them and everything. And that usually, even if the law can be satisfied else, in other ways, that usually you're going to have to put some earnest money down to satisfy the seller.
So true. This particular deal right here, to get it done, it was a $300,000 earnest money check. And we knew it was a home run deal. So we quickly jumped for it. And not everybody is able to jump on deals like this because they're fearful that they might lose their 300 grand or they don't have the 300 grand. But we have a resource for everybody that that thinks it's worthwhile to be able to have at your fingertips. We're going to go through that in just a second, okay? The next one is having the cash available. There's a few different ways to come up with the cash. Either you can do cash yourself, you can find a partner that has the cash, or you can use a bridge lender. Now, could you go to a regular bank and get a loan for properties like this? Yes, you can. But in distressed assets, usually what's happening, like on this particular deal, the seller was about to lose it to foreclosure. He didn't have 3 months available for me to go get a regular loan and close it. He didn't have 30 days. He didn't have 2 months. And so he needed us to close it out fast. So you can either bring cash in on a deal like this, or you can bring in a bridge loan. What a bridge loan is basically they're like a private group of investors that bring their money together and they'll loan it to you. They kind of act like the bank. They just want a monthly check coming to them for interest, but their rates are higher. They can close really fast. Like on most of our bridge loan deals, if we do take out a bridge loan, they can close them in 8 to 10 days. It's like lightning fast. So that gives you the ability to tell a seller, yeah, I can close that fast, okay? We have a resource for you on this as well. The next is a stabilized lender. This is think like more like a traditional bank. If you're getting a deal that's already rented at 90% occupancy, meaning it's mostly rented, it has, it's in good shape, it doesn't need a bunch of work, then you could get a regular loan if you have enough time from the seller to close on it, okay? What we like to do is we like to buy them with either cash or a bridge lender. And then after we get the property fixed, whether it's a small repair or renting it up to 90%, what we like to do is go back to the bank and ask them to give us a permanent loan. It's called a cash out refinance. Who here has ever heard of a cash out refinance or taken out a home equity line of credit? If that's you, put me in the chat. If you've heard of a cash out refinance or a home equity line of credit. Yeah, a lot of you. Sam has, Charlie has, Mark has. Yeah, a lot of people have. So we're going to do the same thing on this one. We've got 3.5 million or 3.3 million plus some change cash sitting in this one. I will go to a regular bank within the next 18 months and I'll say, hey, banks, we got the place fixed. It's fully rented now. Will you give us a loan on the property? And then they'll do something that's called a cash out refinance. More than likely, God willing, on this property, we'll get all of our money back. All $3.3 million, we'll get it all back. We'll give it back to our investors. And that, I'm going to leave this for you in the chat. That is an amazing day that happens, number one. But number two, is that a taxable event or not? Are we taxed on that money? When we take all of that money back from the bank, do we get taxed on it? It's like a giant Christmas bonus coming back to your bank account. You guys are good. Chris, we have an amazing group here today. Yeah, it's not taxed. You guys are good. There's no tax on that. Why? Because it's a debt. It's a debt against the property. It's debt against the business that owns the property. Usually an LLC. It's not your debt. It's the property's debt, but you don't get taxed on it. Okay. So that's what we do. We go get a big wad of cash back from the bank and we do the cash out refinance. That's what you're going to do with stabilized lenders. I'm going to hit 2 more really quick because this is popping up more and more right now. There's a concept called seller financing. Simply, this means like we got this property, Chris and our team closed on this one about maybe 6 weeks ago now. And the seller on it accepted seller financing, which means that we pay the seller a monthly payment. We did not have to go to the bank and get a loan. We make interest payments to the seller for 4% interest. Can you get 4% anywhere else right now? Can you go to a bank and get a 4% loan? It's almost impossible in this market, but this one, because of a distress situation, because with the seller, we were able to get it at a 4% seller finance rate. Here's another one. This one we closed roughly 13, maybe 14 months ago. We assumed the seller's loan. This is a beautiful 22 unit in one of the hottest areas of Louisville, Kentucky. I drove my wife to this property, Jennifer, and I had her looking around, and the row of houses on either side of it, they're all $1 million plus houses. And I showed it to her and she said, I would live here. And I said, I know you would. This is beautiful. But it's a little 22 unit, and we assumed the seller's loan. We talked directly to the seller, who then introduced us to his bank. And we said, hey, bank, you guys have a really low rate. Will you let us as the borrowers take over the seller spot? And the seller said yes. Seller said yes. Bank said yes. So we took over a 4.3% interest rate loan on this property. There are more and more situations like this becoming available because of some of the distress in the market right now. Okay. So pay attention and watch for them. Okay. So I'm running up that hill, yelling, no. And I can see the face of the guy now. I'm close enough to see the face. And his getaway driver is still parked right next to our car. And so I'm still holding on to my little son for dear life, just running as hard as I can. Not really sure what I'm going to do. But out of pure habit and instinct, I'm still running. And then they see my face, this bright red dude running up a hill after them. They see my face. They grab one more bag out of the back seat, and then they both jump in the getaway car. They throw it in reverse, and they squeal out of there. And I'm still running at them. And I get next to the car. There's glass everywhere on the ground. The door is sitting wide open. My 4-year-old's crying. My wife then catches up and comes up the hill. She gets upset. My other boy starts crying. My little girl starts crying. And then I start to question, like, did I do the right thing? Should I have ran up that hill after him with a 4-year-old, especially on my shoulder? And then my wife, the next day, she enrolls my kids like any good Christian woman would do. She enrolls my kids in gladiator training school. What would you do? Okay. My son had my little 4-year-old that night when we were praying. We always go around the room and we do a little prayer. And my little 4-year-old said, we said, what are you thankful for today, John? And he said, I'm thankful we didn't get shot. 4-year-old. So sometimes I question my own habits. I do. Okay. Sometimes I question them. Distress can bring out the best and the worst in people sometimes. And for me that day, what we decided as a family, my wife and I prayed about this and talked about it a lot, but what we decided is we're going to turn this distressful event into more of a devotion, into more of something that our family can look back and say, yeah, we're glad we didn't get shot that day, but we're also glad that we learned something. And so when we did the whole gladiator training school, my son adopted this identity. He's 4 years old. We read the Bible with him, and he really likes David. David in the Bible, he's the little brother. My little son, John, he's the little brother. So he kind of assimilates. And so I work in the office out of the house, and I'm coming out of the office the other day, and the doors won't open. It's a double door that opens into the house. They won't open. And I push them a little bit, and I realize that they got the door handle duct taped together. And so I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. And so I force it just enough to be able to cut it with some scissors, and I cut my way out. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get them. And I come around the corner, and there's my little one, Johnny, with a slingshot lined up right at me, right for my head. And he says, Goliath. And he shoots me. Boom. And that's when I knew my son was okay. That's when I knew, even though we went through this distress, that he was going to be okay. Like he's emotionally going to get through this. And so I encourage everybody here, like, don't let distress scare you. Distress can make you stronger. Distress can build you up. Distress can bring major opportunity. And what I want to do now with the last little bit, we're going to go through the questions together. We're going to hit that. But I want to do this. May I share how you could work with Chris and I really quick? Did we do a good enough job where we could take 5 minutes and share with how you could actually work with Chris and I for a couple of days? Chris and I are putting together a nice little event where him and I are going to work with people. Him and I are just pouring into people for 2 days. Is that cool if I share that? Cool. Thanks. Thank you. So it works like this. Okay. It's a 2-day master class. Chris Strickland and I are teaching it. We're going to bring a couple of guests, and we're going to go through some really deep stuff in this. We just want to make sure that everybody understands and can go out there and do this opportunity. So working with Chris and I for a couple of days, we've been paid a lot of money. It doesn't matter what the screen says for value. We've been paid much more than this to go out and work for people. Chris literally got hired by somebody a couple months ago to spend 2 days with them, and they paid him $25,000. Chris's knowledge in his head is worth every penny of that. So when I'm putting values on the side, it's simply just so you know that it's a valuable thing. And don't worry, it's not going to cost $7,500 by any means. It's not going to cost anything close to that. You also get Q&A sessions with Chris and I. We're literally going to answer any question that you have while you're with us during those 2 days. We're going to have special designated Q&A sessions so that you can get help from experienced investors, the help that you need. The next one, who here, let me know in the chat if you'd like to have someone that can do your earnest money deposit loans so that you don't have to write a $300,000 check. If you'd like to have proof of funds so that you don't have to have millions of dollars in the account. If you'd like that, put me in the chat. If you'd like to have a kit where you had access to someone that could do the earnest money, someone that could do the proof of funds, someone that could do the bridge loan, because we have it, we have that. Someone that can do the stabilized loans. That right there, we put $1,000 value on that, but it's probably worth a lot more than that. We're going to give that to you with this. Like that part alone is worth paying the small tuition that I'm going to show you in a second. The small tuition is tiny, but it's worth every penny of it just for that fast funding toolkit. And Chris really helped put that thing together. So this will help you move forward to land the deals that you really want to get. You have to have these proof of funds and these EMD amounts. Otherwise, sellers won't take you serious in the commercial game. The next one, and this is for the first 15 people that sign up only. And Philip, if you could put the link in the chat for me, I'd appreciate this. If you know that this is for you, I'm going to tell you right now, the whole thing is, it's less than $300. Okay. Philip, if you could put that link in the chat, I'd appreciate it because this one will probably go pretty fast. We have a primer book. Okay. It's for those of you that really want to understand this business and sound smart when you talk to investors, when you talk to potential partners that want to come in, if you talk to a seller, if you talk to a broker. And what this is this, it is a book that Chris and I took time to write with our CMO Paige and team. This is a book that goes through and really gives you the 1, 2, 3. Like if you're like, Nate, I need it all laid out for me. I want a step-by-step on this whole process, what it is, what the benefits are, how it works. There's some video training that goes with it. And then it's all here printed in writing for you so that then you got it to go back and reference on. So that link is in the chat right now, but this is part of it. It's for the first 15 people only. You'll get this book that will come with it as well. Okay. Next, during the 2 days working with Chris and I, we want you to retain the information. We know that active engagement is the key to retention. So we have a workbook for you. The workbook is awesome. We literally break it down. This is the workbook right here. It's beautiful color. Like you're going to come in here and as we're going through the training, you're going to start filling in the blanks. So then you have something to go back and you'll remember, you'll recall all of this stuff much, much more. Okay. So for those of you that like to fill in the blanks as you go through a training session, this workbook's for you. This is something that we're going to include as part of this whole thing too. Next, I know someone asked earlier about the instant underwriting calculator. This is something that we've literally charged. We have a different group that people paid us over $10,000 for to be part of the group that gets this calculator. We're giving the calculator as part of this inexpensive package. Okay. Why? Because we know for you to feel confident to go out and get deals, you need to trust yourself on the numbers. So why not use the team that's closed over 1,600 deals? Why not use our calculator? This calculator, so it'll let you go out there and feel good about making decisions and going after deals that make sense. The calculator looks like this. It is fantastic. It has 6 different tabs at the bottom, including a tab on how much money you'll need to raise from an investor, how much earnest money you should do. It has the rent roll, the T12, the initial underwriting, everything that you think you'll probably need to underwrite a commercial property the way that we do. It's here inside of this. Okay, this is a monster value, and it's part of this package as well. The next one, who here wants to have the lingo down? If you want the lingo, put me in the chat. If you want to know that you're saying the right things at the right time, put me in the chat. And this makes a huge difference. A lot of people, the reason that they get rejected from a seller or from a broker is because they say something wrong. They sound like they're a rookie. And so what we did is we put together the dictionary. Okay. This is the dictionary of multifamily investment terms so that you sound smart talking to a seller. You sound really intelligent speaking with a lender, with a bridge lender, or someone that's going to do their earnest money. We want to make sure that you've got this down. So the dictionary, it's got everything from the A to Z in here. All of them are included inside that dictionary. We put that together for you. It's part of this package. Okay. Next, we want to make this risk-free for you. Some of you that you know us really well, you know that we have 4.98 star review on Trustpilot. You know that we're the highest rated in the business, but some of you don't know us. Some of you are like, I just saw you on the internet. I don't know you yet. How can I trust that my watch this, it's going to be $247. How do you know that my $247 investment is a safe one? Because we're going to make it risk-free. If for some reason you're not in love with the 2 days of working with Chris and I and everything else, the bonuses that we're offering to you, you can come back and use it in the Home Invest store. Okay. Our store is awesome. We've got cool gear, like the shirt that I'm wearing right here. You got hats, mugs. We got clipboards that Chris's mom makes. Like we've got really, really good stuff that can help you as a real estate investor. So we're trying to make it risk-free for you. And we'll still let you keep all the stuff like the underwriting calculator and all the goodies that we're giving away as part of this package. We just really want to make it risk-free. The bonuses are for people that take action today. So when you go to the page, the link that Philip put there, you'll find those. Okay. So that's for today only. Now, when is the session? Where are they? Great question. Glad you asked. It's a 2-day event and it's on Zoom. It's November 15th and 16th. Okay. You'll also get replays included for 90 days with this. If you're like, oh goodness, I can't make the 15th or I can't make the 16th, you'll have replays available for you. We don't do the replays forever simply because the real estate market changes. It fluctuates. Chris and I want to be there to teach you, and then you ask questions and then you go take action. Ideally, we have you live for at least one of the 2 days. If you can't make both, we understand. One day is a Friday. The second day is a Saturday. You don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to book any hotels. We're going to do it on Zoom like this, and we're going to make it super interactive, going back and forth on that workbook so that you'll retain the stuff. You can learn the stuff and go out there and run with it. Okay. Shandon's asking, is there any distressed assets in Canada right now? And it depends. It depends. Aaron's up there. Oh, Chris already answered that question. Cool. It depends on where you're looking and how you're looking, but we've got a student up there named Aaron, and he's getting deals. He's buying a lot of his deals in the United States of America, but there are distressed situations everywhere. Chris and I will be going through those with you and helping you get that. So that's it. That's what the offer is for $247. I sincerely 100% in my heart know that you can't go wrong. We tried to really 10x the value for you. So if you really look at this and break it down, it's worth over $11,000. You can get it today for $247. The first 15 and only the first 15 get that primer book. You'll get it delivered for you today. And then the other bonuses there for folks that are able to jump in with us today as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip over and take questions. And it looks like Paige put the specific times for the workshop too. It's November, Page 15th and 16th, right? I think you put 11th on the chat. I just want to make sure that we got the right dates. Okay, cool. 15th and 16th. Okay, awesome. Chris, let's dive into some questions. Let's make sure we answer them.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of really good questions. So I agree with what you said earlier, Nate. Everyone's just really participating in everything. Really appreciate that. Yeah. So some of these some people ask similar or the same questions. So I'm going to try and narrow these down just a little bit. And so here's kind of a general question that I think a lot of people are going to have. And that is, this is from Kareen, and I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, mispronouncing it. How can one buy commercial properties with limited capital and no partners?
How can one buy commercial properties with limited capital and no partners? Okay, I'm going to help answer that one in just a second too. And just so you guys know, we will open up and count the 15 with you guys too. So Alfred, Eric Jones, I see that you came in, you registered. Welcome, man. Congratulations. So I'll get that. I'll put the counter up in just a second, and I can see the others that are on there too. But I'll put that up in a second. So how can somebody come in without capital, without a partner? Chris, maybe we both tell our story, because I know you didn't come from the royal family of Dubai, and you didn't have a bunch of partners lining up to give you cash either. My dad was a mechanic. My mom did home daycare. I love my parents to death. I learned good hard work ethic. In fact, where I'm sitting right now, I'm at base camp. I'm up in the mountains at about 7,000 feet elevation, and I'm going to go meet my dad. And tomorrow we're going up in the mountains, and we're going to spend 5 days up there. And I'm so excited for it. What I learned from my dad is hard work. I didn't learn how to work on investments. I didn't learn how to work outside of working with my hands, but I did learn hard work from dad. And so when I went into this whole real estate investing world, I didn't have any money. I worked my job and I saved what I could. And I discovered a program through a gentleman named Dean Graciosi, Real Estate Investing. And he showed me in that program how to go out and find a deal first. And then once you have the deal, then bring it to investors. And so you might back up and say, well, hold on, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you need the investment money or do you need the deal? And I can tell you from my experience on my journey, the way I got my very first deal done, I found the deal first. I found a true killer deal. And then it was easy to find the investor. But it's got to be a true killer deal. Let me know in the chat, how many of you here feel like if Chris and I were guiding you, you feel like you could hunt down a deal? If you feel like you could, put me in the chat. If you feel like if Chris and Nate here, if we guided you, you could go out there and you could find a deal. Maybe not all the money right away, but you could find a deal. Yeah, Jim does, Lori does, Sam does, Kim does, Ryan says exactly. Oh, yeah. Raj does. Yes. So I know that everybody here can, if you're willing to put in the work, that's all, because it takes time. There's, as I said earlier, there's no free lunch for anybody ever. If you're willing to put in the time and you've got guidance, you can find a deal. Once you find the killer deal and you put it out there, and Chris and I are going to be showing you how to put it out there. When you put it out there, that's when investors step up and they say, hey, Chris, I'm going to flip that question over to you. I'm going to say one more part of it. Just this morning, I got a phone call from that Oklahoma City deal that we're, God willing, going to close on in a couple of weeks. And the broker on it, he called, it's off-market deal, but there's a broker that's helping the seller. The broker called and he was he was mad at me. He said, oh my goodness. I'm like, what is it? This is like 2 hours ago. Oh my goodness, you guys are going to resell that deal. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, I saw your team. You guys posted it on Facebook. It's a picture of the property. You guys are trying to resell that deal. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't know which picture you're talking about. We probably did post it on Facebook. Somebody on our team did, but we're not trying to resell that deal. We're keeping that deal. He's like, well, that's this post right here. It's obvious that you're trying to look for another buyer. And I'm like, send me a copy of the post, because we're not looking for a buyer. I'm looking for our more investment partners. I want more people to bring us capital to deals like this. He's like, oh, so you're just looking for a couple more people to give you money. And I said, yeah, of course. Like, that's how we do infinite deals. We can buy deals month after month because we just put it out there to the world and then investors come to us. So I thought it was so funny because this is like small world. The person that posted that post is literally over in Europe. He works on our team, on our European payroll team as a VA. And he posted it, and somebody in middle America saw that post. So social media is powerful. But Chris, how would you answer that?
So I saw a comment come through when you were first talking about that, and they said seller financing might be one way to do a deal like that, which is absolutely true. The thing that comes to my mind, though, is seller financing still requires some level of credibility, right? You have to bring a certain amount of knowledge and credibility to the deal, or the seller, it's going to be really hard to convince the seller to sell to you, especially when we're talking commercial, multifamily properties and stuff. So one more reason to get as knowledgeable as you possibly can by gathering all the information you can, whether it's through our dictionary or our workbooks or attending the 2-day. Nate, I can tell you, my first 2 deals were seller financed. I was able to, now they were single family. My first 2 deals were single family properties, and I was able to purchase those using seller financing. At the time, I had a mentor, and my mentor walked me through. Every time there was a question by the seller, I would go back to my mentor. I would let them know what the question was, and they would tell me how to respond. And so they walked me through those first 2 deals and helped me to get those. My third deal ever was to move away from doing those 2 single family rentals, and purchase 24 houses at one time in one single package. And I'll guarantee you, had I asked my original mentor, should I do this, he'd have probably said, no, you're not ready for it. Luckily, I didn't ask that question. But I'll tell you, it did require me having a little bit of knowledge, which I was gaining, and it required me having that investor. So if you don't have an investor right now, if you don't have somebody, then that's one of the things that we love to teach. We love to teach you how to build those relationships. I want you to look at this long term. I want you to look at this from the standpoint of today I'm in this spot, but I want to be across the river. I want to cross that bridge and get to the side of the river that I really, really want to be on. And so how do I do that? Well, I start gaining knowledge. I start gaining, relationships and things that I need. It's not going to be an overnight journey, but it is absolutely doable. It is absolutely something that I can do. And that's exactly what we did. I found this partner, started nurturing a relationship, and before long, he was willing to give me the money because I still had no money. Because those first two rentals I mentioned, combined, they were only making me $150 positive cash flow per month. So I wasn't getting rich anytime soon on those two properties. And, but I was starting to speak the language, and I was able to talk to somebody that did have some money. And they are the ones that helped me to invest in that third package of properties and everything. So that's exactly why Nate and I like doing what we do.
You found the deal, man. You found
the deal.
You found the opportunity that someone was excited about. So
that's right.
That's
right.
So focus on that, guys. Find the killer deal, and then the investors will be there for it. You have to obviously put it out there. We'll show you how to put it out there, but find the killer deal, and then investment capital typically flows. And so I also just want to congratulate Christine. Congratulations. You're working with Chris and I. We're looking forward to spending a couple of days with you. Lori, same thing. I won't go through all this right now, but I just wanted to let you guys know I am watching this so that we can mark the 15 for the book too. Chris, what's the next question?
Awesome.
Man?
That's awesome. Okay. Do you help us to build a team or make yours available? That is from FJ.
So two parts. I'm going to let Chris answer the part on funding because he found the funding team that I wish I would have had a decade ago. I really wish I would have had him. I even wish I would have used them 3 weeks ago, but that's a different story for a different day. Regarding the team that you need, we're going to teach a couple of things. Number one, during the 2-day event, we're going to teach something called boots on the ground. It's the 7 boots on the ground that you need to do this business. We're going to teach you how to find them in any market. Even if we went to a new market tomorrow, our team knows how to build these 7 team players on the ground and knows how to direct them. We've got the best practices for them. We know what to do. We know how to find them and how to work with them. In addition to that, if you want to work with our team, yes, there are options to do that. We do have options for it. They're not for everybody, but some people choose to come back and partner with us on deals. Some people choose to come in. There's a term called wholesale, like where they sell the deal to us. There are options for that as well. So just know that they're out there. Chris, what about the team that you put together for the funding toolkit? Because this is one that everybody usually needs, especially if you're going to do bigger deals.
Yeah. And it's usually something that is a pretty big concern. It's like, how in the world do we get the funding for these things? In fact, one of the other questions that's coming up is from Derek. So I'll just answer it right now. And that is, there are several different things that go into funding a deal. And so we put this kit together to be able to address each of the different, whether it's questions, concerns, or whatever that a seller might have, that brokers might have if they're involved in a deal. We put together everything that you need in the funding toolkit to be able to make offers as well as close the deals. And so you're going to have things in the funding toolkit to get you all the way through. And so, for instance, one of those pieces is earnest money, as Nate said earlier, was talking about earlier. Well, we have a place, I have a resource that we're going to give you in the funding toolkit that is going to allow you to actually borrow the money when necessary. Won't always be necessary, but when it's necessary, you're going to have a resource where you can actually borrow the earnest money deposit that might be needed. We have one of our clients that we're working with right now just put an offer in earlier this week, and their offer includes $25,000 earnest money deposit that they need. And he he writes me and he's like, Chris, what am I supposed to do? Where do I get this? And so we were able to send him that resource and everything. So we have resources for earnest money deposits. Another big one is when sellers, or again, brokers, whoever you're working with, is when they are wondering if you're legitimate. Are you really going to be able to do what you say you're going to do? A big part of that is being able to show them proof of funds. And so again, in the funding toolkit, we give you a resource that shows that you do indeed have the proof of funds, that you have the funds, rather. You have proof that you have the funds available to go. Now, we're going to show you other resources where you're actually going to get the money. You're actually going to bring the money in and partner with people and get loans and things like that, that long-term lending that Nate spoke of. But we are going to show you a legitimate resource that has proof of funds available to you, so that takes care of that stage and that step as well. So again, every stage along the funding pathway, we have you covered from the very beginning to the end, all the way through. All right, Nate, anything else that I need to cover on that?
You nailed it, man. I'm just gonna go ahead and answer the next question that I saw from Mark. Mark saying, is there a calculator? Is a calculator a spreadsheet, or is it accessed via online? It's both. It is a Excel template. We put it into Google Sheets so we can easily share it online. Looks like this. And so in here, this thing is so awesome. Like, we will not pull the trigger on any asset until we've gone through all the numbers on this thing, just because we've been in this game for so long. We use this on probably 4 to 5 deals per day that we look at and underwrite. But you can come in here and you upload. It's called the rent rolls. We'll teach more on this in the 2-day, but every single seller, when they own a commercial piece of real estate, they should have something called a rent roll. It's basically, here's who the tenants are, here's how much they're paying, and if they're current or not. But you upload them there, and then you also upload the seller's expenses and income. They call that the T12. Type that in the chat for me so you remember that one. T12. T12. It stands for trailing 12 months of expenses. You get those two things and you upload them into the sheet, and then it starts spitting out numbers. It starts telling you like, hey, here's what your cap rate would be. Here's your ROI. There's another term that I'll throw out called IRR. It stands for internal rate of return. It starts telling you all the measurements that you're going to need to know. And by the way, if you don't know any of the terms that I just said, don't worry, because you're getting the dictionary too. Remember the dictionary of multifamily investment terms? That's going to help you so that you sound smart when you're starting to talk to sellers, when you're speaking to investors, so that you can actually land the deal with them and they don't think, oh my goodness, you're a rookie. So yeah, this is the calculator. It's online and it's available as an Excel download. Once you get the link from us, which you'll get it as soon as you do the checkout process, you come in and you click download and do it as a download as Excel, and then you'll have your very own Excel template. So you could literally have this forever. It's not something that we're going to revoke access to or anything like that. You can have it, download it when you download it as an Excel file.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. All right. I see that you answered Jim's question up above about, does this work for hotels, mobile home parks? Absolutely, it does. This is a really, really good one that Samuel Jones asks. Is there distress in every area or in just certain places? And I'll take a stab at this first. I have been able to buy properties in about 30 different states. And that's over the years, obviously, but there's distress everywhere, I find. If you remember the slide that Nate showed early on that had the 5 Ds, I call those the 5 Ds of distressed assets. Those 5 Ds exist almost everywhere. Now, certain parts of the country have other, more than others. For instance, distress, what was disasters, the natural disasters one that you put up there, Nate? Obviously, certain parts of the country have hurricanes, certain parts of the country have things like tornadoes. I live in a part of the country that has a lot of wildfires and things like that. So there's different aspects, but there is distress absolutely everywhere because it's sad to say, but people are always dying. They're always passing away. People are always, unfortunately, in our society, always going through divorce. People are falling into debt, and people are getting sick. And so when these life events happen for people, it does cause a lot of stress in their lives. And so oftentimes they're looking for a way to alleviate that stress, maybe bring some cash into their pocket so they can pay medical bills or pay for whatever else. And so there's distress happening everywhere. What we will do is we will help you. If you join with us, we will help you to identify some of the higher areas, the areas that have higher amounts of distress in them. But I want you to rest assured, because probably wherever you are, there is probably some level of distress happening right there where you are.
Well,
Okay.
well
We
said,
do have
Mark.
our favorites, I'll say, but there's something going on everywhere. All
Well
right.
said. Mark asks, so are we putting properties under contract with your paperwork? Mark, you're more than welcome to. Yes, when we go through the 2-day event together, we're going to show you what we use. The first document is called a letter of intent. That's usually the first one that you submit in the whole commercial real estate game. And then if the seller and the buyer both like the letter of intent, then you move to the purchase and sales agreement. So we'll be covering those at the 2-day event as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Some of these others that I have internally are just similar to what we've already answered. What if I have limited capital? I think we've kind of addressed that already. What is the best way to find distressed properties? We're going to be diving deep into that during the 2 days. And so, but I'll tell you this, just maybe give you a little teaser, I suppose. And that is, there is probably distress all around you. Just yesterday, I put an offer in, and I think I saw somebody's question up above that talked about land, distressed land and everything. I actually put an offer in just day before yesterday on 43 acres. And the distress is coming from, it's two brothers that own this property. And they bought it a few years back, hoping to develop it and do some things with it and everything. But as things turned out, they're not able to. They're actually kind of in over their heads financially, and so they are looking to get rid of this property at about a $200,000 discount. Now, that's not much when it comes to the commercial numbers that we're talking about, but for raw land in the middle of nowhere, it's quite a discount. And so how can you find distressed properties? They're probably all around you. It's just a matter of not even always knowing where to look, but what to look for and everything. So we're going to dive deep into a lot of that when it comes to the 2 days. Let's see here.
Chris, is it cool if I just for folks on timing, can I recap what we're doing and what they're getting?
Please do. Yeah. And I think
Okay.
I've got all the questions covered from our internal people that submitted them ahead of time. So I think we're good.
Okay, cool. So for those of you that want to come to this is what you get. Okay. This is all for $247. Number one, you get Chris and I 2 days. We're working with you. It's on the 15th and the 16th of November. It's on Zoom. You do not have to travel anywhere. This is the masterclass that can finally let you get that first deal. This is the masterclass that we're going to answer all of your questions. So as you've got them, and as we're going deep together, you can actually come out on the other side and say, you know what, I feel good. I can land this. If you're working on deals between now and the event, bring those deals to the event. Let us dive in with you. There's no reason why you can't, especially with all the goodies that we're going to give you as part of this as well. Okay. The next one, the fast funding toolkit, 100%, like no marketing talk, no sales talk whatsoever. That fast funding toolkit, when we put $1,000 value on the side over there, it's worth more than that all day long. For you to have earnest money on demand. Remember that deal that I showed you earlier that I had to put up a $300,000 earnest money check? For you to have earnest money on demand, proof of funds on demand, bridge lenders, stabilized lenders, we're talking a decade plus of work that Chris and I have done so that now you can launch in this business and help you move forward with the funds that you need alongside of you. It's going to give you so much mental confidence to know that you've already got that funding secured. Okay. For the first 15 people, and we're keeping track of that, for the first 15 people, you get that Distressed Asset Advantage Primer. Okay, that's a fantastic book. It looks like this. Let me flip over to it. It looks like this. This book right here, you read this, and now you're ready to start talking with some sellers. You're ready to start talking with investors because it's got the framework set up for you. It's got details in it. The team took a lot of time making this beautiful for you, and it's ready to go. It's ready for you to download immediately when you move forward with us today. Okay. Next thing is the Instant Underwriting Calculator. That's this tool over here. This is the tool that we use to underwrite all of our deals. This is the tool that we submit to a lender when we're looking for them to lend. This is the tool that we give to investors when we say, hey, come and partner with us. This tool looks professional, looks good. Once you get it, you could delete our logo and you could put your name right here. You could delete our logo and put your logo. If you don't have one yet, we'll show you how to get one from a website that makes them for you. There's an AI tool that makes them now. But this is the tool that helps elevate you. If you were going to have somebody invest with you, I'll just ask you this. Do you think they would receive your potential offer better if it were wrapped in a brown paper bag or in a gift box with gift wrapper on top? Brown paper bag or in a gift box with a nice bow tie on top? Which one do you think they're going to receive it better in? All day long. You know it. Yeah, gift boxes. Right on, Jim. Yeah, Lori. Exactly. You guys are good. Like if you go to your bank and they ask you to put money into an account or a CD, I guarantee you're getting a beautiful color brochure. If you go to Northwestern Mutual or any financial planner, I guarantee you they're printing you stuff that looks really, really good. It's not brown paper bag. If you want to play in this arena and be able to get investment capital, you have to have a tool that looks like this. This just lets the investor know that you did your homework, you did your math. So this will give you that confidence so that you can get investors to say yes with you. It also gives you the confidence to say yes to the seller if you feel good about the numbers after putting them through a tool like this. Okay, cool. Next one is the dictionary. This dictionary right here. Oh, Paige and the team did great with this, but they literally went through and they pulled out the A to Z on all these terms. I used to hate it when I would go to like a real estate training or go somewhere and not know what they were talking about. Now you don't have to do that. Now you can walk out, you have this dictionary, you can print it out and take it with you. You can look up the terms as you go. And you've got everything literally from A to Z in here for everything that we cover in multifamily. It is inside this dictionary for you. Now you can sound the way that you need to sound when you're talking to a seller or investor. You got to sound smart. That's the bottom line. And remember, I started this webinar telling you guys that I'm not so smart. I'm mediocre when I'm compared to Chris, but because I have tools like this, I can sound smart at least. I'm blessed. I'm blessed and I work really hard. Okay. And then the last thing on this list right here, just to make this really risk-free for you, especially if you don't know us yet, those of you that know us, you already know that we over deliver in everything that we do. We are 4.98 out of 5-star reviewed on Trustpilot. That's the highest in the industry. There is not even a close second competitor to us. This whole education business that we're talking about right now, this is not how Chris and I pay our bills. We're very blessed in the real estate aspect. We do very, very good there. This is how Chris and I give back. This is how Chris and I are able to fund our nonprofit. We have a nonprofit called Home Invest Kids. We just dropped 10 grand in that account the other day. Like that gets us excited. It gets us lifted up being able to do that. I know how much love Chris puts into somebody. We talked about Erin, the nurse from Canada earlier. I know how many hours Chris spent with Erin really helping him. It was way beyond what we promised that we would do, but he does it because he wants to see him win. And so that's why we do this whole thing on the education side. So don't think for a second like $247, Chris and Nate are getting rich, because the 247 doesn't mean anything to us. It does mean stuff to our nonprofit. It does mean stuff for what we can do in the world that's good with the money. Okay. So, but to make it risk-free for you, even if you come to this training and you're like, oh, that wasn't for me, we're going to give you the gift card, the $247 gift card towards the Home Invest store. We have goodies in there. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing as an example, or the hats, or Chris's mom made this killer clipboard that literally has the script written on it of what you say to a seller. It walks you through the 4 phases of the conversation. And it gives you the breakdown. You literally, if you're sitting at the table with a seller and you don't know what to say, you just look at the seller and say, hey, do you mind if I go through my checklist on the clipboard to make sure we cover everything? And the seller's going to say, yeah, sure. And then you go through it. It's so brilliantly designed by Chris and his mom. And like, we have stuff like that available at the store. So you'll get tools, you'll get immense value from it one way or another. We want to make sure that if we ever take a dollar from somebody, we over deliver 100% of the time. So that's your risk-free guarantee. You get a gift card with the whole purchase. The event is November 15th and 16th. There are replays available for you for 90 days. So you got plenty of time, even if you can't come live. Try to come live if you can, though. You'll get so much more out of being able to ask questions back and forth with us. But that's everything, unless I missed any questions. Philip, looks like you got the link for me. Thank you. You were one step ahead of me. And that'll be the last call, because as soon as we close this window, as soon as we close this thing down, that link disappears. So if you're on the fence and you wanted to click it, but you haven't, click it so it pops up as a window on your desktop, and then you've got it for later too. Chris, did I miss any questions?
Nate, I think you have covered everything. It's been great to be here. So thanks for letting me be here with you, and thanks to all of you for hanging out with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Paige. I know how much love you guys put into this to get it ready for everybody. And I think everybody would agree that they at least got one nugget from this. If you guys got some nuggets from it, can you just put a little heart or a love symbol in the chat for Philip, for Chris, and for Paige? They worked so hard for you guys just to make sure that we can deliver good value for everybody. Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Chris, I'm going up that mountain. I know you can't see it, but I'm going up. My dad and I have a mission, so I will be offline, off the grid. I hope to see you guys on the 15th and 16th. I'll be back, obviously, in an office at that point, but now I'm going up.
Nate, be safe. Everyone else, look forward to seeing you guys on the 15th and 16th. It's going to be fantastic. And yeah, everybody have a great week. Thanks.
Bye, guys.